Hi, welcome to episode 5 of Cracking the Codex for the Orc Codex. This time we're stomping, we're stamping, we're clanking. It's the Dread Mob. How you feeling about this one, John?
I've got to admit, this is probably despite everyone else being really excited about the kind of the approach to this one, it's the one I'm the least interested in.
I get it.
And
I think
I just
the concept I like the most, or like second most, but then after a while you look at the rules, you're like, it's good, but it's limited. I think for me, when the Forge World units got squatted, because that was going to be the sort of like, oh, I don't have to just run this, I can run this. It gives you a bit more flexibility. I think it's still very good. I think it's going to be very fun on the table, but I think it's just the list writing part of the army is kind of a bit toned down compared to where it was before, which is something we both enjoy. So, yeah. All right, so let's get into it. In terms of orcs, you know it, you love it. What do you get if you're an orc? You get Waaagh. And as I found out this weekend, if you go to a UKTC event, you can no longer shout that loudly, rupturing my eardrums. Let me know in the comments whether you think that's a good idea. Spoiler, I think it is. So, Waaagh. You're playing fair orcs. You only get one turn of this, but don't worry, it's still very good. For that one turn, you get to advance and charge. You get +1 to your strength and attacks of all your melee weapons, and you get a 5-up invuln save. It's not bad. Any thoughts on the Waaagh for Dread Mob specifically? Because this is quite a different detachment.
It's interesting because you've got I think you time it well. So as much as in other detachments, I think you can kind of skulk around and hide and stage yourself. Yeah. This to me feels like a detachment where you might do a turn 1 defensive Waaagh. Because if you can't hide everything as well, having that 5-up invuln might save all these lovely shooting units that you're obviously going to be building into this army.
Absolutely. There are some things that key off the Waaagh. I believe it's the Morkanaut. I always get the two of them confused. But I think the Morkanaut is the one that gets +1 to hit in the shooting phase in the Waaagh. Obviously, you get the invuln. Your melee is not bad. Cans are pretty okay in melee, especially if you're getting an extra attack each. Being able to advance and charge gives them a little bit more flexibility in the movement phase. I think the Waaagh is way more interesting. If you've been playing orcs for a while, you call the Waaagh, then you charge and you kill your opponent. It's fine. You know, it's a strong rule, don't get me wrong, but it's a bit dull to do the same thing. Whereas here, you're like, oh, when do I use it? So I quite like that difference. But enough about the Waaagh. What is it you get specifically for being a Dread Mob army?
Right, so here you go.
So Dread Mob, try that button. Each time one of your mech, orc, walker, or Grotz vehicle units... do we have any Grotz vehicles anymore? Or have they all gone?
That is kilocans.
Okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it. So each time a mech, orc, walker, or Grotz vehicle unit from your army is selected to shoot or fight, roll a d6. Your ranged weapons get a buff depending on what you roll. On a 1 or a 2, you get sustained hits 1. On 3 and a 4, you get lethal hits. On a 5 or a 6, you get crit wounds, improve your AP by 2. Or you can choose to pick one, and your guns all get hazardous. And if you're already hazardous, you get hazardous on a 1 or a 2. Also, your Gretchen units get battle line. There's a lot of stuff there to make this army play.
Yeah.
You want to... All right, yeah. Well, I guess let's just go back for a second, because I think there's quite a bit to chew through on that one, actually.
Okay, yeah.
So 2 of these buffs are incredible, and having the flexibility to pick them means that you're going to be, realistically, you're probably going to be playing a lot of kilocans. Kilocans with rocket launchers. Rocket launchers are a mid-high strength weapon. They're probably not wounding vehicles on anything better than a 5 a lot of the time, but you can get lethal hits on tap. Suddenly that's pretty incredible. And sustained hits is just a good buff if you're wounding anything on a 4 or better. Sustained hits are usually my go-to. It's mathematically the same, lethal and sustained if it's on a 4, but more dice, more gooder, that's what I always say.
Yeah.
So, and then there's crit wounds, which you will never pick, and sometimes you'll roll into and be like, oh, this is the other option, I guess. Cool. That's about it. Any thoughts on this one?
See, I like it, but the problem I've got is a lot of the shooting is hitting on 5s, on 6s.
Yeah.
It just, I find it a little bit hard to get excited about a faction that's shooting isn't great, being what you're leaning into. As someone that played a lot of 8th edition 40k orcs,
Yeah.
where I relied on just a lot of guns, and it was, spoilers, mech guns. It wasn't orcs actually shooting, and it was hard work then.
Yeah.
So this isn't going to change. So I'm just...
I'm a lot more excited because I played a lot of 9th edition orc guns, and that was pretty good. Turns out if you can layer efficiency buffs on high volume of shots, sometimes that's just all you need. So I think I'm a bit more predisposed to believe in the heart of the dice there.
Yeah. So what do we get though that you can combine with the button? That's the question.
That is the question.
So you can get some smoky gubbins. This is a mech model only enhancement, and this gives the bearer's units stealth.
This is truly one of the enhancements that you can take. That's not fair. That's actually, this is probably my favorite out of all the enhancements, because you can put it on a big mech in Meganog armor, and you can, rapid ingress a unit of Meganobs with that. Obviously, the big mech and Meganob armor gives the unit a 4-up invuln, so you can have -1 hit and a 4-up invuln. It's not bad. It's definitely a tankier unit. I still like having it more with a war boss because you can kill stuff more gooder. But yeah, I think there's definitely play here.
Yeah, it's one I probably wouldn't take myself because the amount of times I take something that gives me stealth and then I play into something like Death Guard that just go, oh, these modifiers. Oh, yeah. But never mind. Right, next one is a super glowy thing, which is, again, mech model only. This one has a little bit more to it. It's in your command phase, select one enemy unit within 18 inches of and visible to the bearer, then roll a d6. On a 1 or a 2, the enemy unit must take a battle shock test. On a 3 or a 4, the enemy suffers d3 mortal wounds. And then on a 5 or a 6, until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that enemy unit makes an attack, they are on a -1 to hit.
Orcs random. Ha 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 ha.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, it's some cool stuff, but depending on the points of how it lands, I think this one came in at, I want to say 25 points.
Yeah, I don't.
It was one that I looked at and went, unless that's basically free, I'm not sure I'm going to take it.
I still wouldn't take it, but if they wrote it so it was something like on a 1 it does nothing, on a 2 to a 4 you take the enemy unit takes a battle shock, on a 5 or a 6 it takes a battle shock and take more wounds. Yeah, maybe that would be something a bit more consistent.
I can see what they're trying to do. It's an experimental piece of gear. It just doesn't quite land for me, but maybe the next one does. So press it faster. So again, mech model only. Each time the bearer's unit is selected to shoot, when rolling to determine which ability that unit's weapons gain from the try dat button, roll 1 additional d6 and you gain both abilities. Specifically, if you roll the same one twice, you just get it. That's it. There's no re-rolling. So there is a slight risk there, but it's not bad. You could pick one and then roll one.
If you wanted to go for the slightly jank combination of the new mech who does the flat advance, and also you phase through walls with a unit of mech guns, I could see you maybe going with that just to boost their output a little bit. I think I'd prefer to give them stealth if I was going for that combo, to be honest. But maybe there's some unit in here. The problem is a lot of the units that the mechs can join aren't incredible at shooting. So looters only hit on 6s with heavy, which is not something I can get excited about, to be honest.
Yeah. Next. So the Git Finder goggles. So a mech model only. Ranged weapons equipped to models in the bearer's unit have the ignores cover ability.
Yeah, more of the same. Again, I'm probably not taking anything that I want to join mechs to give them ignores cover, but it's there. I think, let's be honest, the power in this detachment is not in the enhancements. It's in the stratagems, and it's in the data sheets, and it's in the detachment rule. And to be honest, I think I'm all right with that, because enhancements are the most limiting way to have power, because it's something that you have to pick before the game, and you have to sort of call your shot and put it in a specific place. So if you can, and it's obviously not the case, if you had a finite amount of power to spread between the detachment, having it be weakest tier, I'm pretty okay with.
So let's get onto those stratagems then, I guess.
These I am quite excited about.
again, 4 battle tactics. So
Mm-hmm.
this doesn't really come into anything for orcs other than the fact that they are ones that an opponent could make cost an extra CP. So it's just, we've got that kind of denoted here just for that sort of clarity for you. So the first one, Clanking Claws. This is in the fight phase, 1 orc walker unit from your army that has not been selected to fight. Each time you use the stratagem, you can choose to push it. Until the end of the phase, add 2 to the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models in that unit. And if you chose to push it, until the end of the phase, add 1 to the damage characteristic of those weapons, and they have the hazardous ability as well.
It's pretty good. I like it. Solid. Because the cans are fine, but they're not going to necessarily get you there every time. This pushes that over the line. You've got a dedicated 1 CP, slam it, pop it, lock it, restock it. Everything good comes in 3s. That's why I'm running 18 killer cans.
And if you are playing it thematically and you've got a load of mechs just wandering around anyway, the hazardous tests are not the end of the world because the mechs are just going to be repairing stuff. So
the mechs can repair stuff. Also, I am a huge fan of playing very aggressively and going, I'm going to table you. Half or 2/3 of my stuff is going to die. Not just to myself, but to my opponent. But I'm going to have more stuff than you at the end. And that is my win condition. So, if me killing myself is the price to push the damage over an acceptable threshold of, I actually might just table them, I'm pretty all right with that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Something that I should say for this one, because you have to take a hazard test for your claw, right? The melee weapons. Yep. So something you can do, you can take a dreadnought, Death Dread, I should say. Yep. Every claw past the first one is not an additional weapon. It gives you +1 attack on the profile that you have. If you have 4 claws, you don't take 4 tests. You take 1 test, and you still make like 8 attacks or something. So that's not a bad way to go.
I have 3, all with 4 claws.
I wonder if I've got one to hand. I'm a failure of an orc player. I don't have a claw Death Dread in reach. There's one somewhere within 3 meters of me, but I'm not 100% sure where it is. Let's move on. Bigger shells.
Mine is directly below me. There you go. Bigger shells for bigger gits.
Yep.
This is in your shooting phase. Mm-hmm. One mech, walker, or Grotz vehicle unit from your army that's not been selected to shoot this phase. Mm-hmm. You can basically do the same as we just did with the last stratagem. You can choose to push it until the end of the phase. Each model in that unit can make an attack that targets a monster or vehicle. Add 1 to the wound roll. Mm-hmm. If you chose to push it, add 1 to the damage characteristic of that attack. And until the end of that phase, guess what? It's hazardous.
Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, yeah, baby. You know what I really like to see?
Yeah.
Big stuff fall over.
Yeah.
Rockets go brrr.
But why don't you just push a button and then give it bigger shells, right?
That's what I mean. I'm going to be doing all of the things. I like that you just layer it. Here's the problem, though. Bigger shells for bigger gits. That's all well and good. +1 a wound. I'm probably wounding on 4s or 3s if it's a light transport, but I probably don't need the strat if I'm going to light transport. So I'm wounding on 4s. Already I'm feeling great. I've decided, you know what? Screw it. We're going for sustained. I like more dice. More dice, more gooder. But I'm still only hitting on 4s. 4s are okay, but they're not that reliable. Is there any way that I could improve that, John? Maybe with the next stratagem?
Yes. Daka, some might say. So in your shooting phase, 1 Orcs Walker or Grotz vehicle from your army that's not been selected to shoot this phase. Each time you use the stratagem, again, you can choose to push it. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, reroll hit roll of 1. If you chose to push it, though, you can reroll the hit roll instead. And until the end of the phase, guess what? The weapon becomes hazardous.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? You can stack a lot of hazardous in this army, but you're capped at only taking wounds on 1s and 2s. It doesn't matter if you get
quadruple hazardous.
We've had 1 hazardous, but what if we just get real weird with it? Oh, yeah. No, this is an incredible stratagem. This is, I think, like, the other 2 are great. I love them. But this being 1 CP, you're going to slam it every time you're shooting a unit, once per turn. Unbelievable. This is such a good strat. I think this is what makes the detachment good. I think it makes it genuinely good. And I don't think it's necessarily easy to play, which is weird to say.
Yeah.
I think you have to be really good with the positional play. Cans are fairly slow, realistically, with where they start. But
yeah,
there is something that can help with that down the line. What I will say is this goes really nicely with sustained hits. So especially if you're layering with bigger shells for bigger gits. Obviously, if you go into something and you've only got 1 CP to spend, give them the lethal hits. You're fishing for those 6s to wound, and then everything else is just gravy. But if you're going to be wounding on 4s and you're re-rolling those hits, I think for every 6 shots, you're getting like 5.2 hits or something. That is just full napkin maths off the top of my head. It's you're dropping less than a hit, basically, across 6 dice, which is insane for orc shooting. That's so good.
Yeah. And kind of parallel to this in Bully Boys, the reroll to hit strat in that detachment. Playing that all weekend, I kind of appreciate that this strat probably has a similar sort of play to it. Suddenly you get this level of consistency that you're not used to having in orcs, and I think that's going to surprise people.
Yeah, that's the only way you kill anything in Bully Boys with Mega Knobs, because turns out they actually don't hit as hard as you think they should. But with that strat, they do, and with this strat, cans do.
Yeah.
They even have a way to get closer, but we'll get to that one after the next stratagem. What do we got for extra gubbins?
So extra gubbins is your opponent's shooting phase just after they've selected their target. 1 Orcs Walker or Grot's vehicle unit from your army, excluding Titanic, that was selected as the target of 1 or more of the unit's attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is allocated to your model, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic.
Yeah, that's really good. Just -1 damage on tap is absolutely lovely. And it's an Orc Walker unit. Often with these sorts of things, like, for example, mechs, they give, heal a model and also give that model +1 to hit. So a lot of the time, these sort of effects are kind of limited to just single units, which for killer cans is a little sad. But it's for the entire unit. You can't chip through that squad. Killer cans are so hard to kill when they're -1 damage. They are a ludicrous pile of wounds. They just go, I guess I'm still here, especially if they've got a 5-up invuln.
But yeah, you said about movement being potentially a problem for some of these walker units. So what happens if you give yourself a super fueled boiler? Well,
you go fast.
In the movement phase, just after an Orcs Walker unit from your army has been selected to advance, that unit can re-roll advance rolls, and the ranged weapons equipped by that model gain the assault keyword.
That is nice. That is nice. I do dislike strats that you have to declare before you know if you've got the range to get the shot off that you've advanced for. That kind of sucks. Yeah. But it does give you a reroll. So it's like the best version of the worst version, if you get what I put it down.
At least if it's within kind of acceptable risk, you kind of go, well, I'll do it because I've got the reroll to help correct it potentially. And I think that's all right.
If I need a 4 to shoot something with, the chunk of the majority of my unit, I'm going like, I feel pretty good about that. 3 out of 4 times, job's a good one.
And then one that I need to say very carefully is Conniving Runts, which is in your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy ends its normal move, advance, or fallback move within a 1 Gretchen unit from your army that is within 9 inches of the enemy unit and not within engagement range. So Gretchen units, interesting. Roll D6 on a 4-up. The enemy unit suffers D3 plus 1 mortal wounds. That sounds pretty good, but no.
That's incredible.
The unit then can make a normal move. Oh God,
it's fine. It's fine. My webcam setup is purely built by orcs, so this is to be expected.
Yeah,
we do it live. Keep going.
Right. So not only that, but the grots get to move. So they throw some shite at you, and then they run away. It's brilliant.
That is, it's so reactive moves are incredible. I played Canoptic Court over the weekend. Really gave me a fresh appreciation for something that I thought was already incredible. It's just probably the best thing in the game, having a reactive move. And this one does damage as well. Sure, you're limited to just Gretchen, but, it's incredible.
You're going to take Gretchen.
Yeah, when you do it to your opponent, they're going to call you a reniving
squig. Brilliant.
Moving on.
Oh, giggly Ed. Right, so we've put together a list. would you like to run through it, Edward?
Yeah, let's do it. So this is more John's creation than mine. But we did both, before John wrote the list, agree that there were some staples in there. So we'll go top to bottom. There's a war boss with 10 boys in a truck. It's just good. The war boss slaps pretty hard. It's mobile OC. It's good to have. You need to have some sort of mobile threat. Trucks are great for sitting on objectives. If your opponent's playing like almost purely melee, if they struggle to crack transports, it's it's not an auto win, but it's such a huge boost. Then you've got a war boss in mega armor with 5 mega knobs with twin kill saws in a truck again. Same sort of job. Mega knobs are incredible, even if you're not playing a detachment that particularly buffs them. They're still just so good you want at least one squad, I think. Then you've got Zogrod Wartsnagger with 20 Gretchen and 1 Runt Herd. So Zogrod is absolutely nuts. I will let you talk about him after I've done the rest of the list, because he is worth, deep diving into for just a couple of seconds. Boss Snickrot, lone up once per game, uppy downy, but it's the best uppy downy in the game. I didn't realize until I played against it this weekend. I had to double take. So you don't go up at the end of your turn, your opponent's turn. You just, in your movement phase, you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to redeploy.
It's a blink. You just go,
it's
he's there now.
Unbelievably good. Yeah, so good. Then there's the 5 Storm Boys, 5 Store Boys. Lovely scoring units. You want to see them. 2 units of 10 Gretchen with Runt Herd. These are fantastic. They farm UCP. They sit in your deployment zone and on your natural expansion, as Chris called it last night. And it just get you points, get you CP. Can't ask for more fairer than that. 2 squads of commandos. Commandos are expensive, but they're surprisingly chewy to get through. They are stealth, so -1 to hit. Once per game, they can get a 5-up shooting phase from their a 5-up invuln in the shooting phase from their distraction grot, which is just, you don't have to be in the Waaagh. You're going to use these to clear space for the big chunky models that you have, which are killer cans. You're going to run 18 of them. You're going to put 12 on the board. You're going to put 6 in reserve. If you're playing against a really shooty army, you could probably put 6 on the board. So rapid ingress 6, and then just bring the other 6 on. Anyway, yeah, killer cans. So good. They are like the fuel that makes this list tick. But yeah, so tell me about Zogrod.
So you think Gretchen, how would you normally see Gretchen in it?
Puny, slow, squishy, don't do any damage.
Sitting on your home objective, generating CP. That's what I've seen them do in this edition so far. In reality, you add Zogrod to the unit, and he turns them into super runts. So when he's leading a unit, they gain the Scout's 9-inch ability,
which is so fast.
Yep. And then each time a model in that unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit and 1 to the wound roll. And
so
then
they're still bad, they're less bad.
And then each time an attack targets them, -1 to that wound roll.
I mean, that's all well and good, but even with the Scout, you might struggle to get them where they need to be. Surely they can't go very fast or anything like that.
When you call the Waaagh, until the start of the next battle round, add 6 inches to the move characteristic to the model's unit because they've taken a special dose.
What? Yes, they just go 12 plus D6 and then they're wherever they need to be, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. So the way I see it is they just go wherever they need to be, and it doesn't matter what happens to them, because at that point, someone's having to shoot their good guns or anything to deal with them. And it's like, well, actually, that's brilliant. That's priceless.
So they're less tanky than you're expecting them to be if you're the Orc player. They are an annoyance. They are very good. I played against them this weekend, and I did manage to clear them out without too much issue.
Yeah.
But they're also cheap, and they're fast, and they're annoying, and they're OC, and the battle line in this detachment. Oh, yeah, by the way, Gretchen are battle line, so you can take 6 units of them if you wanted to, which, I mean, maybe you do. You could just run 120 of them. Too bad, so sad if you own 150. Sorry, John. You got to use 30 for something else. But yeah, no, just an incredible set of combination of rules there that you've got slapped on one silly looking character with long hair.
Yeah, well, it's not even hair. It's a hair squig. It's worse.
And on that bombshell, thanks for watching. This has been the 5th episode of Cracking the Codex Orks. Next week, we are looking at doing some Chaos Space Marines. We wanted to make sure we'd had some actual proper time to digest the rules. I think there's a lot of power in there. We don't want to just go in half-cocked. We want to make sure that we know what we're talking about, have a chance to actually play some games with or against it, and bring you the hottest takes from the hottest boys. Good night.
Unhinged.